Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our Taking the Temperature discussion. This is our fourth and final in our series of conversations with women in the denim industry. My name is Tricia Carey, and I'm Director of Global Business Development for Denim at LENZ. We transform trees into TENCEL, lyocell, and modal fibers, which are used by leading denim mills and brands around the world. To learn more about TENCEL Denim, visit our Carved in Blue blog or follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. And to see some amazing denim videos from our mill and brand partners, our series called Headspace and Conversations Like These, you can check out our YouTube channel, Blue LENZ. We are excited today to have a distinguished panel of women who between them handle various creative and business roles within the denim industry. Spanning the globe from the United States to France, Italy, and Turkey, their experience with global denim mills and brands includes Cone, Candiani, Gap, ITV, J-Brand, Contour, which is also Lee, Orta, and more. Let's just say these women know the denim world. The effect of the COVID pandemic has been significant, with 6.2 million cases and over 375,000 deaths and rising. The lockdown policies of most governments has seen the biggest fall in consumer confidence records since they began. It has been widely recognized that from Germany to New Zealand and Denmark to Taiwan, women leaders are doing a disproportionately great job at handling the pandemic, having employed effective strategies. With that in mind, what insights can today's panelists bring to the questions hanging over the past, present, and future of our lives in our industry? And as a society, how are we facing other social issues? We now have the opportunity to rebuild what was once an $80 billion industry. We finally have a chance to right the wrongs of the past. So what do we plan to do about this? The apparel industry is made up of people, and are we the people to bring the change we wish to see, the type of change that brings progress? The $2.4 trillion apparel industry employs over 75 million global workers, from design to factory to retail, 80% of which are women. So today we wanted to get the input of these esteemed women from around the world, and I'll make a short introduction. Starting in Istanbul, we have Banu Adjan. She's with Tapia. We have Barbara Nudi from Efe in Italy. Deborah Frederick, who's a denim specialist, and I've known her for years from Contour Group. She's in the United States. We have Gelfin Santos from Dibs on Blue, also in Istanbul. We have Lucy Germster from Sphinx, and she's in France. Maria Cristina Pavarini from Sportswear International in Italy. We have Mary Bruno, who's a denim specialist, and I've known for years from various brands, and she is in California today. We have Mary Kate Kelly from Candiani Denim in Italy. We have Corette Scavuzio from Cone Denim, and she's in New York. And we have Towanda Vaughns, who's a global denim specialist and is now today in Germany. So our format for the discussion today is similar to how we've run the other panels, where I will ask questions of the panelists for about 40 minutes, and then we'll open to questions from the audience. To get started today, we will discuss a little bit about where we are in the denim world. And on Carved in Blue, we've been talking about the modern definition of denim for several years. And this has actually been a hot conversation and dialogue that we've been having on the blog. What does the modern definition of denim mean to you now? And we'll start in Turkey with Gelfin.
Hello, everyone. So I've been thinking a lot about this since I received and since I followed Card in Blue. I think especially now, pronouncing sustainability alone is not the solution anymore that buys us time. So we need to think about the modern definition of denim in terms of regenerative and restorative ways. I'm always giving the same example, but according to the State of Fashion report, an apparel company might think they have like 1,000 to 2,000 suppliers. But in fact, when you count all sub suppliers in, it's like the number is going up to 20,000 to 50,000 suppliers. So that's a lot. I think to meet the consumer trust, we need to have a heightened level of transparency to start with the modern definition of denim. Secondly, I think a freelance could be another modern definition of denim. I am a freelance consultant, and everybody had the chance to meet with the working remotely from home because of COVID, because of these hard times. But right now, companies are they understood the possibility of working remotely, and Gen Z and Gen Y will prefer to work from remotely, and that's the new norm now. So I can say freelance is another definition, modern definition of denim, and the loungewear market is really connected with that. It's been expected to grow from 5.5 billion US dollars to 37.7 US dollars in 2023. So I think denim is a great canvas that has this opportunity with soft denim, comfortable denim that we can both wear to work, after work, and even leisure hours. So the off-screen hours will be shaped by now, after the pandemic, the off-screen hours will be shaped by comfort, simplicity, and functionality, whereas now, as we are experiencing now, on-screen, pieces worn on on-screen will be the new means of self-expression. So that's why consumers will browse cozy, elevated basics that are stylishly enough to seamlessly blend lounging, living, working, resting, and playing even. Last but not least, I'll keep it short. It's being estimated that once the quarantine or once the COVID is over, its legacy will be lasting lifestyle changes. And consumers will be increasingly giving importance to their needs rather than their wants. That's why that will result in designing successful products that focus on minimizing the climate and waste while maximizing the value of the product itself. And I hope the vast majority of the consumers are on the edge of discovering closed loop circular fashion systems with fabrics that have that do more with less and with smart constructions. To sum up, I believe the modern definition of denim could evolve around transparency, freelance, regenerative, agile, smart, and hopefully circular.
Yes, well, that's a very comprehensive overview on the modern definition of denim, but I think you've captured it so well because it is very complex. And Perrette, what do you feel about the modern definition of denim today?
I think the modern definition of denim will have to hit many components to adapt to a new generation of consumers and their shift in purchasing habits. Denim will always be rooted in authenticity and draw from the past. It will always be that way. All components will need to be transparent, sustainably, and ethically produced and sourced. That is available today, but this will be a non-negotiable. Garments need to be durable and make the consumer feel comfortable and safe. The buying choices will be simplified, as they should be. There will be more of a quality, not quantity approach. The products will be more meaningful to the customer because every purchase will be carefully examined from here on out. I think there'll be more industry collaborations and a sharing of knowledge. This is happening on the brand side, but in the future, I believe this will be a way to have some great breakthroughs, especially if we see that collaboration happening from the supply chain. There are many brilliant minds in this industry, and I think we'll see more of a willingness and partnering in efforts to build a better future for our industry.
Yeah, I like the comment on collaborations, and I think just in the past several days we've seen some amazing collaborations on the activewear side, And I would love to see what would come out of this on the denim industry too. Deborah, moving over to you, and with your years of experience, what do you think the modern definition of denim means now?
I actually think it hasn't really changed much. There is going to be some slight change. To me, to date, it still means that, you know, it's fabric that's dyed with indigo. It's fabric that's woven with cotton and other various fibers, right? So still the same thing. It's also with and without stretch, right? And then, of course, there's always the soft and comfortable and durable piece to denim. So that piece has remained the same. I think, though, after the pandemic and going through the pandemic, folks are washing and wearing their garments a lot more now than ever before. Like, they get home and they take it off and they wash it right away, right? So I think that color retention is going to be a little bit more important because they're going to look for that now, right? Like, because before they didn't really notice it, but now that they're washing their clothes so much more, they would like their jeans to stay the same color as it has been, right? And then the other piece is I also think they're wearing them out. Like, they are giving their jeans a workout right now. Like, they're doing backyard work. They are hanging out with their kids. And so we need a little bit more durable. And then perhaps maybe the new piece to the denim of definition might be like this protective piece, right? And I don't know what that is. I know we think antimicrobial, but it could be more than that, right? So I think at the end of the day, denim is authentic, like we just said, like we just heard from one of the panelists. And I think that it's just a little tweak to move forward into the future. So there you go.
Great. Thanks, Deborah. Mary Kate?
I was saying I agree with Gulfam. I believe that a modern denim, the modern definition of denim, is a denim that's ultimately circular. That's where we're going in the future. And that's also what Candiani is focusing on now at the moment. I'm sure that most of us are familiar with the unsettling statistics that kind of surround the denim and fashion industry. We know that 25 billion garments, unworn garments, are being just thrown out or incinerated without ever being worn. And most of these garments are made with synthetic or petrol-based elastomers, and these take up to 200 years to decompose. So what we're doing to try to remedy this situation is we've actually just recently debuted our Careva technology, which is the world's first 100% natural biodegradable stretch yarn, and ultimately resulting in 100% circular jean that starts and ends with nature. And I believe this is the only way forward, and this eventually will be what modern denim is.
Yes, I do feel that it's circularity and regenerative developments that will carry us forward. Now, talking about some of the most recent trends, what we've been hearing in the industry the past several months include seasonless. Even Gucci announced last week that that they wanted to promote more of having a seasonless way of delivering their products. What about the old mantra of fashion sells? Is that out the window now? Do we really need another 5-pocket jean? How do we drive sales if we're really under this more seasonless kind of trend? Deborah, what do you think about that?
So I believe fashion will continue to sell. So let's be clear, right? So we know that when we think about our wardrobe, we want it to be personable, we want it to be customized specifically to us. And at the end of the day, fashion really is like the conduit for self-expression. So I think that fashion will continue to sell. And then as far as a 5-pocket, I'm going to lead back to my first question is everybody's wearing the jeans out. And so we absolutely need another 5-pocket, right? You know, like, you know, on the flip side of them wearing their jeans out, then there are people that are like eating through the pandemic, eating through their anxiety. So guess what? When they put their jeans on, it doesn't fit, right? So there is always going to be a need for people to go out and buy a 5-pocket jean. I highly and strongly believe.
Okay, the pandemic, what is it? The 10 pounds, 15 pounds?
Oh my goodness, yes. It's very real.
Yeah, and Towanda, what do you think about the seasonless trends?
For me, I have to say I agree with Deborah 100%. I do think I don't think fashion will go away, you know, for the romance of it all and the individuality of it all. I know even throughout this pandemic, I cannot wait to look at something that's beautiful to kind of take my mind off of what we've been going through. So I think the fashion will still be there. The question is, do we need so much of it? Do we need so much of it turning around every month? This is the fashion. Okay, it goes away. Put this, and then we have to think, okay, when it goes away from the stores, where does it really go? Because the customer has already told us a long time ago, even before the pandemic, that they're shopping differently. They're not rushing to the shops every day to buy up an entire assortment. So we will have to really relook at how much we want to put out there. Quality still needs to be there, longevity, okay? Do we need another 5 pocket? I would say absolutely. But I think what the customer will look for, because everyone is becoming much more aware via social media, different ways. They want to know the story. They want to know how is the jean made. They want to know where it's made. They want to know, especially after this, whereas you're going to watch the money you spend, because some of us have lost income, you know. If maybe last year I would go to a shop and just buy this, you know, but they want to know that this jean that they're buying is going to last. You know, they may not buy the super fashion piece because they may have in mind to wear it a few times a week, but it needs to last. So I think we will still have the customer base, but they will not be in the shops or online as frequently as before. They're going to want to know that what they buy can take them through long periods of time. And I think as far as what's going to really drive the sales, the story, letting them know, getting the knowledge out to the customer that, okay, don't hide facts from them. Don't romance the sustainability. Be very truthful and tell them, okay, yeah, these pair of jeans is made with, you know, whether it's organic cotton or more natural fibers. We are using less water, even if you don't get so deep and technical with the customer, but they've been reading the papers, they've been online, they've been reading how the, you know, how much we pollute the environment in the past and this sort of thing. But if you say, well, we are trying to save the water, save the energy, I think they would get that. And then they would probably, I hope, build a relationship with, more of a relationship with the brands and have the trust to go out and continue to buy, knowing that what they're buying is going to last.
Yes, yes, I think it is about a more selective consumer for sure, with less discretionary income. Lucy, what do you think?
I think that we definitely need to delete seasonal trends, because I think that there is nothing polluting more than seasonal trends. Because if you think that you have seasonal trend, it means that you have to change your wardrobe every season, and it's so stupid, because we all know that we don't change our looks that much. I mean, you can take my example. I always wear the same outfit. It's very basic. It's black. It's a skinny denim. I wear Doc Martens, and that's it. I have my favorite leather jacket, and that's it. If you create trends all the time, it means that your last season wardrobe will be out of fashion, and this is not possible. So my idea would be a bit crazy, but I think that we should really reduce drastically the production. And I think that we should maybe decide to make 20 outfits, very basic, very good quality, made for each category of person. Make it very good quality, produce it in your own country. Then you can avoid the shipment and all the things that pollute. And maybe afterwards, your outfit will be very simple, but you can custom it, you can pimp it like you could pimp a car. I mean, we don't have that much cars, but we can pimp your cars as you like with I don't know. And I think that this is something we should think about, really reduce the production of garments. And that's why I think seasonal trends is out of fashion. We should definitely think about, yeah, maybe 20 outfits and stick to it, because the planet Earth need it.
Yes, a reset on the consumption levels will mean definitely less production, and we can talk a little bit about some of those options. And we've been watching what consumers are doing lately in the United States, especially. We went from hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer to now clothing sales that are down 79%. What do you think consumers will buy when they start shopping? And how do you think the consumers will define value in apparel post-pandemic? And we talked a little bit about if it's around the story and their selectiveness. Mary, what do you think will happen in post-pandemic?
I think there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I think consumers will still be feeling the shock of what has happened and working from home, and all the effects of the virus, the death around the virus. Now with all the political unrest that's happening in the United States, it's quite serious. And I think it's a time when, you know, everything changed overnight from everyone. And I think people really realized how they dressed and what they wore sort of changed overnight. You know, I think people are going to continue to be concerned about a resurgence of the virus. And I think they'll be much more thoughtful about what they buy. I don't think they're going to be as impulsive. It's very similar to what a lot of other people are saying this morning. I think they'll take more time to make calculated shopping decisions. I think comfort is going to be king. You know, people have been wearing sweats and lounge pants for 3 months now and have really gotten used to the comfort with that. So I think, you know, natural fibers or derivatives of natural fibers like Serona, Tencel, hemp, blended into denim is going to be critical. I think stretch, you know, which for years has sort of been, we've been moving away from stretch, is going to be much more important, because people want that, they're going to want that comfort and flexibility. I think we're going to be going through a bit of a basic cycle, and people are going to want quality at a price, but they're going to really want to understand what's the story behind the garment. Where did it come from? Where was it made? What's the afterlife of this garment when it's done? And then, because there's such a basic cycle, I think people will be doing a lot more customizing of their own. A lot of people have been customizing their own things, spending more time being crafting. But I think a lot of companies are going to, you know, start giving vehicles to consumers about how to do that in their stores. And that's going to be the new reason to go to a store, to go in and customize something.
Yeah, that's a great point. How do we get consumers back to the stores? Banu, what do you think consumers will start to buy when they re-enter retail?
I think Mary has made like very good points. I think whatever the consumer is going to buy, I think they're gonna make like smart choices. I think functionality, durability, long-lasting items is going to make like a very significant change. I mean, even before the pandemic, we have seen the signs, and we have been like reading quite a lot of like surveys. Younger consumers are shopping from the brands who have been sharing the same values they share. So not just for environmental, it's about like the political injustice, like the police brutality we have been like watching recently, like gender inequality. So these things are matters. So whatever they're gonna make the choice, they're gonna buy from those brands. And when it comes like a very specific, I think essentials is going to be one of the major area that people are going to shop if they haven't bought yet any, like the basics as well. and they're gonna spend some time and some money for the goods that make them feel good. It can be like beauty products, it can be like sports for themselves. They're gonna spend some money on themselves as well. So for sure, home products, like outdoor products, I think we have been locked down so long at our homes. So I mean, personally, I bought like for like a Stanley thermos for myself, and I go out, I'm gonna put my coffee or tea, and I'm gonna spend some time out. So I'm looking forward to it. So these are the things that, you know, make a significant difference on the consumers. And I think for the next second questions, how do we think the consumers will define the value of the apparel post-pandemic? Even the post-pandemic, I think we've been seeing a huge shift on the consumer buying, purchasing. So through like transparency and sustainability. I think we have spent so much time in quarantine in Europe, in Turkey, in US, I think. So we have like a growing antipathy against waste-producing business models. So we will witness some changes in our industry. Like we talk about like seasonless products. We're gonna see that in-season retailing, like digital transformation. And we will see that declining on the wholesale business. So I think what consumer will buy, they're gonna buy less, but I think they're gonna buy better products.
Yes, exactly. Maria Cristina, what are your thoughts?
Living this time of pandemic has changed us, has made us think more of what is important and what is not important. We really became more selective also in what we do and how we spend our money. I think we learned something because we cannot go on spending for nothing. Also because most of the stores were closed. You couldn't buy whatever you needed. Myself, when I could buy again in stores, I started buying the first top was a top with a cotton, black top in cotton, because I had no more and I couldn't have that before. Also asking retailers what was the first top pieces that they were sold. They told me we sell mostly sportswear pieces, sneakers, jeans, tops. The first one also told me sunglasses. People are going back to buying products that they are really essential, needed. Maybe because they changed their size, maybe because they wanted a new pair of jeans, also because their kids grew up. But it's really something that is very much focused on actual needs, because we become more going to the core of the products we need. In general, describing their taste, they told me, the retailers told me their taste hasn't changed. They simply were frozen, were forced not to buy, because they continue seeing that maybe older people buy clean products, the young kids buy more aged pieces, so they simply had to stop. But now they want to buy again, want to continue putting stuff in their product, in their wardrobes. I think in general, not only people will buy more core products for the wardrobes, but also products which are correct for the season we are living. For example, now we don't need to find anymore in the stores, for example, a woolen coat when it's summer, or a bathing suit when it's winter, because we really need to buy what is in the right season, because also all these rhythms have to be changed and go back to the actual needs of the market, because you cannot put a lot of stuff in the stores and afterwards put that on sales, because the stores are stuck with merchandise. So I think we really have to rationalize the whole way we approach the market and the way the stores sell. Definitely the industry has to do it. Also, another aspect that is we recall people inside stores is the need for safety, for security, for wellness. And it will not only by putting hand gel for your hands or gloves or things like this, but also kind of help in buying, not only feel safe from a microbiotic problem, but also in terms of somebody who really gives you the right answer, the right advice, and and showing you that you can really find good products that fit your needs at that moment. So if on the one side, I will also look for safer products, antibacterial, antiviral, which are also important, but the consumer will become always more and more conscious about how that product was done. If the people involved were mistreated, if the companies were unpaid, or products were not produced according to the right standards, because this is something that people are becoming more and more conscious. Because if this virus has spread so much, it's also because there was so much pollution around that it could proliferate so much. So we will be even more careful in finding products that are not so harmful for the environment. And one more aspect which I wanted to point out is that it's a quote I found which I liked a lot from Dries van Noten, the Belgian designer, which I think expresses this new approach that the consumer has to find. He says, we have to explain what we do and how we do it. We have to let them know that behind fashion there is an industry and not only frivolity. Let's not bomb the consumer with 1,000 of messages, but with a few and strong pieces. Let's educate them in appreciating again the value of things.
Well stated, very well stated. So 20% of apparel merchandise goes unsold. Actually, I think it might even be higher, but that was one of the recent statistics that I read. How can we aspire new ways of reducing inventory? Should we produce only on demand? Starting to see a little bit more of that. You have to place your order first before the product will be produced? Or is it through some other way of pre-order? Barbara, what do you think? How can we reduce inventories?
You know, with the today's situation before the pandemic, everything was like, as Mary Kate said before, was kind of crazy. I mean, there's a more than 20% on overproduction right now that it's being burned or buried, is never even being weared. And we are 7 million people in the world. We produce more than 100 million pieces. That's mean, and everything's too fast. Some fast fashion right now produce something like 55 micro collections per year. That is something insane. In this optic is even, and if this is gonna be even the future, it's kind of hard to produce on demand or on pre-order. I really hope that what has happened really bring a new way to see the futures from the brands. I really hope the brands go back to creativity and to maybe local productions, as Lucy said before, to get out even a controls and, you know, to avoid something that could happen. Definitely, I hope there's going to be a buy with a more conscious way from the final customers, and definitely produce less and better, as we said before. And in other words, that I believe could be the future could be upcycles, to give a second life on the inventory from the brands. And that could be help even on the environments and everything that we all from the business working together is right now.
Yes, no, all good options, and it's how we can bring this in. I think also as consumers, we've gotten so used to having it instantly. And I know here, you know, it's been strange in the New York area to go to stores and see shelves that are empty. That's not typically how it is as a consumer. And so will we also adapt to the fact that maybe things won't be at our fingertips at all the time? Gelfin, what do you think about how we could reduce inventories?
Well, first of all, I would like to approach this from a marketing point of view. I believe to reduce inventory as an industry, brands in the industry should also might consider getting the consumers involved in the design stage. Therefore, maybe the first and the quickest solution is to create that denim canvas where people can have meaningful connections with their products. This will allow retailers to refresh their inventory with their already existing styles. So that's a really quick one. And designing clothing that can be remade, resold, or repaired will enable brands to profit from products beyond the first point of purchase. So that's also another point of that. And also we will see the rise of making, do, and mending in the 2020s with the new breed of home crafters after this pandemic times. However, in the long term, this vicious cycle can only be changed with determined steps. So as Lucy said, as people move into more survival mode, the notion of good value will be redefined. And we, in order to do that, we need to focus on designing seasonless and timeless items to start with, because the lifespan of a product is more elastic now, because there is this rental and repair business models that are continuing to evolve. That's why, secondly, I think the most important one is that the fashion industry must start collaborating with the tech companies to fight with this inventory problem, which will allow them to analyze data to figure out quantities. If you work with automation and data analytics, coupled with nearshore facilities, we might achieve just-in-time production, reduce overstock, and produce small batches of production cycles, and while responding rapidly to the consumer demands and trends. So that's nearshoring is really good solution in the long term. I did a quick research after your question, and I found out that 3% of unsold apparel is being liquidated each year. So that's also a lot. That's why technology, analytics, and nearshoring are part of the solution. We should base our projections on actual demands rather than best guesses or forecasts that result in excess inventory. Again, based on the State of Fashion report, and from an economic perspective, nearshoring requires lower capital investment. It also leads to small inventories and more flexibility and agility. And if you couple that with micro factories, which will enable you to an agile denim garment production. So this will result in shorter lead times, and which will enhance better planning for qualities, reduce overstocks, and again increase full price sell-through for the brands too. But it's not an easy jump. We have to shape this. We have to shape our supply chain accordingly. According to the same report, for example, there's this fact that if you reshore from China to Turkey, the landed cost of a denim product can reduce by 3%. However, in terms of landed cost, we still have time to nearshore in US and Turkey, but we can try, and that also has an advantage for environmental impact too, because when you nearshore, your ecological footprint is less due to reduction of transport. In the end, this will also, I believe, again, a nearshoring could even enable a circular value chain in a more smart way.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your input there. And Banu, what do you think?
I think I could also agree with Gülfem. I think it's like nearshoring is one of the key elements for lowering the inventory. The typical buying cycles, what happens, when we start a new collection, the buyers, the brands spend most of their budgets overseas to achieve higher margins on their collections. So what basically we do is we produce and we put everything in our warehouse as brand side, and then we try to sell what we get produced. So we need to think vice versa. So we need to find a way as manufacturers, I'm coming from the manufacturing background, representing Taipa here. So we need to find as manufacturers how we change this cycle. First we need to produce. We need to be producing what the brands are selling actually. So it's yes, nearshoring. We have been. I think it's valid more than ever. I think we have read all McKinsey report in 2018. Is textile coming back home? Yes, eventually, even before the pandemic, I think we have been like heavily discussing these topics. But still, there are things that we have challenges. When we are nearshoring or when we are doing like local production. Because our industry is mainly depending on the labor, and the labor cost in nearshore is comparingly higher than comparing to the overseas. So how we are going to tackle these challenges? Yes, nearshoring will shorten the lead times. It will enable the brands to fulfill the quick response deliveries. But on the other hand, if we cannot find ways to compete on the price level, I think we are not able to find a solution for our brand partners. So I think there are two key elements in here. One of them is like automation, and the other one is like digitalization. So we need to find a way as a manufacturer to produce even one single unit PO order. So maybe it can come directly from the e-com channel, from the brand's database. So as a manufacturer, we will take this PO and put it in process and produce and ship it back to you. But how long the consumer is going to wait? 2 days? Maybe 4 days? No more than that. I think this is only possible through digitalization and automation in our industry. So we see like copy-paste factories everywhere. You go a factory in Turkey, you go a factory in Bangladesh, in China, in Mexico. I think they all look alike. So we need to think differently. We need to take lessons. We need to take lessons or some good practices out of other industries. I think, we've seen dark factories in US, for example, they are producing trucks with robots without any labor force. We are in our industry, garment manufacturing, you have one sewing machine, you have one operator, and it has been like that more than 200 years. So we need to think in a different way to solve this inventory problem, I think. Otherwise, yes, we will consume less, we will produce less, but even though the inventory will be a big problem because the choice of the consumer is going to be changing through the season. And if we are not going to change this, I think this is not going to be a solution. I think we need to think radically in terms of manufacturing and giving a response of what's requested right now from the consumer end.
Great, yes, thank you. And Lucy, you touched on it a little bit before about seeing that there's so much in inventory. What are your additional thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not an engineer or analysis, so I don't have any concrete solutions about how to save it. But what I can say is just to remind you that the most sustainable garment you can have is the one you already have in your wardrobe. So I think we just have to educate people and tell them that you have to buy less and buy better. And about on-demand or pre-order, I don't think that it will work because people want to try it and to buy it immediately. They don't want to order and then see if it will fit or not. So I'm not sure about that. I think that we have to rethink the whole the global concept and maybe go back to what I said before. Try to produce less but better. And I'm very creative, so I hate the fact that I would be dressed like everyone else. But this is the point. I think we have to produce very few garments and then pimp them with solutions like creative buttons, creative scarves, maybe adding sleeves. This is something that you can do personally if you have talents in sewing things, but this is something that all of us can work on. This could be our new job to create these details to make it creative. And this would avoid the on-demand or pre-order problems we are facing.
Yes. Lucy's going to start her pimped denim line. I love it.
Yeah.
So. Good. One area that's been strange for me over the past couple of months has really been that the government is telling us what to do so much. And now we have a week where the government certainly isn't stepping in when they need to. All of these changes, the imposed lockdown, how do you feel about the government, and should they be more involved in future issues, perhaps even some of the issues around sustainability? Do we need government intervention in the denim industry, also on a social side? Mary Kate, what do you think about this?
Thank you. Well, the last few months have definitely been challenging. I am based in Milan, so we were hit pretty hard, and most of the first few weeks revolved around us just sitting in front of the TV and trying to understand what the next steps were going to be, what the new rules, what the new regulations were, and we were basically living day by day waiting for updates. And ultimately, while that was frustrating, I know that specifically the Italian government were putting these rules and regulations in place for the safety of the people, for my safety and for my loved ones and everyone around us. I do believe the same can be said for government involvement in denim production, in garment production, ultimately to create a safer future for all of us, and specifically regarding waste and producing on an excess. I know that I'm lucky to work at a company like Candiani where we only produce based on demand, and this helps us to significantly cut down on our waste and just not contributing to that enormous excess that there is in the world right now, because I personally believe that's one of the biggest issues and one of the main ways that we're going to make a change in this industry. I know that chemical use, water use is a big issue, but I think it's probably one of the easiest ways that we can control what's going on in the fashion industry. I think if not necessarily in every country, but just some places where they could pass laws based on the amount of garments that are allowed to be produced, if they could perhaps encourage manufacturers to produce only on demand, that it could make a big difference in the fashion industry moving forward. And that's maybe something that needs to happen.
Right, for sure. And Barbara, what do you think? How much should the government be involved?
My background and the company I work right now are all based in Europe, and I'm talking especially in Italy. I think we have more regulation by government than brands around the world. I mean, it's crazy. We have so many. That is a good point. If we need one that is a worldwide one, definitely yes. Obviously, it needs to be followed by technical people from the business, because there's so many things involved that you need to be someone technical to work on that. The company, I have a PR company, and the company I work for, I'm very lucky because they made on that their DNA, like company like Rudolph. It's working on a chemical side, but on DNA, everything is pointing to do a better chemical. And the Tonello, as you know, they're doing all the R&Ds to produce new machinery in that direction. PG Denim too. What I want to point, I want to move it to another directions. I mean, we are all from the business, and we know who's the good guy and the bad guys. So we know that where to go to works and everything. My point is we need someone that teach more to the final customers, and with a very easy tools that can be super easy readables on what they're buying. I'm doing a kind of provocation right now, but I don't know, like a tag with 5 stars rate from 1 to 5 And 1 is like the lower one, 5 is the best. Then inside the stores, if you get the opportunity, I'm 1000% sure the people will make the right choice. And I know prices and everything is important, but after this pandemic, I think the view of the people is a little bit changed. But I really believe we need to educate that more in that directions, the final customers, and that we can go back and change all the steps on a full production change for sure.
Yes, it is that the consumer needs to understand more. And Maria Cristina, rounding out from our voices of Italy, what is your take on government involvement?
Okay. The lesson of COVID taught us that, of course, we lost a lot of freedom because of other more important issues. And when I saw the Chinese people from Wuhan blocked in their houses, and when they left their homes with the guns in their face, that was not a fair thing. When Italy instead was blocked, there were no guns, but we were, of course, understanding that it was for our good. Unfortunately, governments also make mistakes. There are problems like, I don't know, the Chinese government who apparently has hidden big secrets like the spreading of the COVID. And also now in the US, we see the problem with racism, but also governments among themselves are starting very often quarrels, fights, like now it's happening kind of a Cold War between China and the US with reciprocal accusations of different topics, be them Hong Kong, be them the other issues happening. So this is really a very delicate aspect, but I think that governments have a big power and really they have a big task to do. Unfortunately, speaking about our industry, there are no rules, there are no fixed measurements. Everybody has his own scale for measuring what is right and how it can be increased or better, how your product can be produced without harming the environment. So I think that first of all, the industry, the insiders, that, as Barbara said, the technicians have to meet each other and find common rules that can define what is good and how we can better achieve. Our results can become better and better. Once this is stated, the governments have the duty, have to really find a way to put this into practice. Unfortunately, there is another problem. The governments don't speak to each other very often. So there has to be a kind of agreement and a reciprocal interest that can be put on the plate and discussed about, because this is something that relates to the whole world. It's not enough if only European companies take care of this or European governments follow these rules, because it has to involve the whole world. Because if we are trying in one country or in one part of the world trying to cut down emissions, if in the other waters are becoming dirty, that's not the way to solve the problem. So it really needs to find a real agreement, and it's so far I think it's apparently impossible. I remember I spoke with the founder of an important jeans brand a few days ago, and he told me, you know, in my board, and there are so many people from different nationalities. They belong to 16 different countries. Each of them brings the richness of his tradition, of his background, history, and also special capacities of his own history. I don't understand why countries cannot find the same way, because this brings such a big richness and the possibility to solve problems if we can only try to do it together. So I hope this is a teaching that we can take and help the world to become better, trying to speak more together.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're right. Countries need to work together, and I hope that we'll see a change in the United States in our next election, and not to get too political, but you know, I think there are a lot of changes and where we can have progress. So where do we see everything going in the next 5 years? What will the world look like when we look back on this time? How will we see that this was really a pivotal moment? Perrette, what are your thoughts around when we look back and where we've come through this?
I think we'll look back at this as a time of adversity that brought us closer as a global community. I mean, the whole world is feeling this. We were thrown into transparency very quickly. We had to adapt whether we felt like it or not. And from that, I think we all learned a lot. We've expanded our knowledge, and we had to learn how to transform our day-to-day, I think personally and professionally, into a virtual and digital setting. I think that also allowed for some creative scenarios to occur very naturally. It's also a time of vulnerability. It allowed for more authentic connections, I think, with our family, friends, and colleagues. Here we are in our homes, in our lives. You really can't get more personal than that. Maybe you had a colleague that you used to exchange hellos in passing, and now you're on a Zoom call with that person 3 times a week, partnering on a project, trying to drive it home, and suddenly your relationship with that person has changed forever. I think it's a time that allowed many of us to get clarity on what is truly needed in our daily life, personally and professionally. And finally, I don't think I can ever wash my hands without singing happy birthday twice.
That's a good one. Yes, for sure. We never thought so much about hand sanitizer and soap. Yeah. And Towanda, what do you think?
I think if I were to look back on this time period, I would still be in shock and awe. But the great thing is, finally, I think all of us would have learned a valuable lesson. And that lesson is how easy it is to have our lives and livelihood just come to a dramatic halt. And I think, in the next 5 years or even longer, we will be at a place in which we will be thinking about, okay, how can we better prepare ourselves, whether it's financially, for those who everything just stopped and now there's a massive struggle. I know for me personally, I'm always going to think, okay, if this were to happen again, and I'm thinking if and when, how am I going to be better prepared? I think also during this time period, there's going to be a lot of reflection on how to do things on a personal level. What is important may not be important any longer after this. Career-wise, industry-wise, how do we change our way of design, manufacturing? Not to make it foolproof, I think it would be quite difficult, but how can we evolve in such a way whereas if we have something so dramatic like this again, how can we continue to be creative and continue to have a career? Maybe it's not so much about having all of this stuff around and having garments and unnecessary things around, but maybe to design more in a digital way. So I think a lot of us may end up relearning certain things, things that we didn't think were important. For me, I plan to be much more on the digital side, to not be left behind. And I think a lot of us were pretty much looking at direction, like how can we not fall through the cracks and suffer when something so shocking like this has happened. So, in closing, in the past, we were always here, oh yeah, you never know what will happen, and then you kind of become dismissive, but you cannot be dismissive as what is happening right now. No one thought it could ever be this way, but here we are. So next year, 2 years, 3 years later, we're still going to think and be, shell shocked almost as to, wow, we went through that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do
we
we
can be,
prepare?
better prepared in the future, for sure. And Mary, what do you think?
I love this question. I think we're going to look back on this time down the road, and we're going to see the outbreak of the virus as a tremendous catalyst for change in our industry. I think the fashion industry has always been relatively slow to innovate in terms of technology and adapting new technologies into the process. But I think it's our time to innovate fabrics, to innovate the development process, and mostly innovating the shopping experience. Every retailer is sitting with tons and tons and tons of inventory, and they're trying to figure out how they can creatively market and sell that product. I think big brands and little are really, sort of are in a timeout to really kind of understand profitability and where their money's going and where they're vulnerable. I think there's a tremendous amount of technology out there to simplify and streamline the process, every step of the development process. There's virtual 3D fittings, there's virtual shopping experience, virtual dressing rooms. But the industry never really felt like we needed them. And I think now they, with the huge shock to the fashion industry, they're realizing they need to evolve and really transcend to another way of selling clothing. I don't think it's time for us to evolve.
Yes, for sure. This is pushing us. We have a couple of questions here. I see one from Sally, and I'm going to pose this to both a mill and to someone with a brand experience, because I think we can take this from different sides. And it's when brands sell a jean that's labeled GOTS or organic, and it might be a jean that's at Primark labeled as organic, and then you might have a brand that costs 3 or 4 times as much also selling an organic labeled jean. How do we educate consumers that there's a difference? And Mary Kate, I was wondering, from your experience and with Candiani and what you develop in Italy, how do you explain that then? And you're a denim mill that's also a brand that focuses on reaching at a consumer level. How do you explain that difference? How do you think consumers can understand better?
And I believe the question before was about what's the importance of organic cotton?
Yeah, about how at different price points. So we could have organic cotton at Primark, and yet you could have, how do you relate to the customer then the difference between that you can have sustainability at different levels, mm-hmm. and if you have an organic cotton jean at Primark, but you also have one that's 4 times the price. How do you get that across? And for years, I think, for Candiani, it's how do you get across the value of quality fabric?
Exactly. We always try to inform our clients or the consumer exactly what goes into the fabric that we're making. I know Mary said that education is key, and we completely believe that as well. We do everything that we can on our end to educate our brands and the consumer the best way to communicate the value that is woven into that fabric. Unfortunately, we don't always have control about the other steps in the process, the washing and the confection of the garment itself. So we really do our best to control the story from our end about the fabric making process itself. But we work closely with our brands to ensure that we can give them as much information as they need so that they can then train their sales staff, and then eventually the sales staff can educate the consumer, because ultimately that's the most important thing. It's education and being able to tell a sustainable garment from a non-sustainable garment. Even if they both have organic cotton, that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Great, thank you. That's Mary. Bruno, if you can weigh in on your experience from a brand side, how do you relay this value and the difference between organic jean that might be sold at Primark versus other price points?
I definitely think we need to simplify the process for consumers. We need to give them, in the States, restaurants have a grading system for restaurants, and you're an A or a B or a C. And we need to have, we really need to simply educate consumers what an A, most consumers don't even know what GOTS certification means. So we really need to simplify away and just give it like an A grade, a B grade, a C grade, so people understand it. Because it's very complex for people, and average people don't understand. And it's not just the organic yarn that's part of the process. There's a whole other process that goes into making garments, which changes the cost from a $9.99 jean to a $99.99 jean.
Right, exactly. And I liked your analogy on the steak that, you know, not all products are equal, and what value consumers can really get. And I think we've all mentioned here too around the storytelling and that transparency. So I think, you know, as we look at different ways and of communicating to the consumer, and definitely digital ways of telling stories, hopefully that can get across. So as we close today, I wanted to ask everyone in one word how they currently feel about the denim industry. And we'll go through alphabetically, starting with Banu.
I think I feel about the denim industry, I think in one word, revolutionary. I think from all stakeholders, from brands, from yarn suppliers, from you know, all of us in this industry. I think you know, we are doing a great job, significant job. I haven't seen like Jersey community come together and like do such a show. So thank you very much, Tricia, for gathering us and on this such a great panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, revolutionary and evolutionary. I think it's all happening. And you're right, the denim industry is unique, and I do cross over into the activewear side and a little bit on the intimate apparel, and there's not these levels of conversations for sure. Barbara, what do you think in one word, where the denim industry is?
Based on what I said before, I hope the future words will be awareness, taken in all the different levels.
Yes. And Deborah?
So I'm thinking about the pandemic. I'm thinking about that word essential, right? I'm thinking about how does the denim industry make themselves be essential. So, and I actually think that denim is valuable. So that's my one word, absolutely valuable.
Great.
We have to continue to do that and make it be essential.
Yes, yes. And Gelfam, for you?
Well, I would say woke, because I definitely agree with Barbara. As the denim industry and as the world, we are now aware that we have a problem. We cannot hide it anymore. We have social, racial, gender, economic, environmental problems in all over the world, also in our industry too. So I hope together we can find a new sense of purpose for a new world order. So
great. Lucy?
If I would speak in the name of Blue Zone, I would say optimism, because I think it's a very nice word that Panos have found. It's very positive and I like it very much. But I personally will say that my word will be tenderness, because I think we all need love, we all need to dream, we all need to escape from the idea that being rude is the only way of making things happen, the only way to win. But this is not true. I think that if we are all stronger together, if we all give tenderness to everybody, I think we will work better, we will live better, we will have more creativity.
Great. Hoptimism from the dictionary of Panos. Yes.
Yeah.
All about combining words.
Yeah, always.
And yeah. Maria Cristina, for you.
Okay. I would use a word which is resilience. Which means recovering from a difficult moment and trying to get the best from it. I think that this industry has been facing many ups and downs, difficult moments, but also great ideas, great intuitions that have become a real market success. So I think also from this period, something very positive and incredible can be generated.
Great. Mary?
My word would be reimagine. I think that this shutdown has made all of us realize we need to begin to evolve how we build our lines, how we produce our lines, and most importantly, how we sell our lines to consumers. I saw something on Instagram and it said, I think this shutdown feels like somebody just sent us to our room for a very, very long time out to think about everything we've been doing. And I found it to be very poignant.
Yes, I liked that saying too. And it was, I think I saw one that said it was, you know, the plant Mother Earth who sent us to our room to have our time out. And Mary Kate?
Well, I like Lucy to believe that hope is my word, but I hope for a few things. I hope that manufacturers will do their best to reduce waste and embrace circularity. I hope that brands will choose innovation and sustainability over price. And I hope that consumers will demand transparency and quality over fast fashion. So fingers crossed that that's the way forward from now on.
Great. And moving over to Paret, one word for describing the denim industry now?
It's a time of reflection. So reflection is my word. What do we want to bring with us? What needs to be left behind? And what new practices do we need to adopt to do better for future generations?
Great. And Towanda?
For me, my word would be accountability. And I'm actually happy for that, because I think we're at a place now in which we have to do better. And it shouldn't take a government or anything to make us want to be better. And with that accountability, I'm relearning again. You know, I mean, in the old days, to wash a garment, whether it's acid wash or whatever we did in the past, you know, being a wash person, you're always creative in creating these finishes. But now what's nice is we're turning this corner because we are being held accountable, whether it's for ourselves or holding other companies or manufacturers accountable. But I'm now relearning how to creatively wash a jean, but in a more of a responsible way. So it's actually a plus.
Great. Thank you. And thanks everyone for your contributions on this panel, for sharing your thoughts, your time, your expertise. And now that we've finished this series of taking the temperature from the women of the denim industry, we'll continue to get more input from women, but we'll be moving over to what we call our Denim Think Tank series, which will be on sourcing, branding, and sustainability. So watch out for that. And if you'd like to be involved in future conversations, just drop me an email or DM me. And, you know, overall, it's how we can connect during this time and collaborate to make that change and progress for the future. I want to also give a shout out to Mohsen and Sadia for their help, their creative expertise. And there's also a webinar coming up on June 4th that Mohsen is moderating on hemp. So we talked a little bit about fiber choices today. So join that. You can find out more on his LinkedIn or Instagram. And overall, just want to say, everyone, have a great afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm going to sign off with our little TENCEL mini jean from White Oak. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.